Admiral, Eric reported, we've accessed their communication network. We can broadcast to all Vrax ships simultaneously. Good work, Major, Helen replied from the lunar facility. Stand by. The Emperor's ship loomed ever closer to the moon. Its weapon systems charged, preparing to obliterate the human facility. Admiral, John Freeman's voice came through the communication system. We won't reach you in time. You need to evacuate. Helen looked at her team, scientists and soldiers who had worked tirelessly to free Earth. Negative, Captain. Dr. Young needs more time to secure the grid. We'll hold here. She turned to Patricia. You said the Vrax rely on deception. That they're not as powerful as they appear. Patricia nodded. They maintain control through fear and the illusion of invincibility. Then let's use that against them. Helen smiled grimly. Major Phillips, are you ready to broadcast? Yes, Admiral. Send them this. On the subjugator, Emperor Zolver prepared to fire when every screen on his ship suddenly activated. The image showed Patricia Daniels standing calmly before a Nilari artifact they had recovered. Emperor Zolver, she began, before you attack, you should know that we've contacted the Nilari Collective. Zolver froze. Impossible. The Nilari are merely a legend. Patricia continued, their outpost provided us with more than just weapons technology. It gave us their communication protocols. They're very interested to learn about your activities in this sector. As she spoke, Lisa completed the final sequence. The planetary grid locked into place permanently. Earth was now protected by an impenetrable quantum field tuned specifically against Vrax technology. A new signal appeared on the Emperor's sensors. Multiple ships, larger than any in his fleet, decelerating from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Emperor, his tactical officer reported with fear, the ships match no known configuration in our database. The subjugator powered down its weapons. Zolver had survived for centuries by knowing when to retreat. Prepare for immediate withdrawal. But before he could escape, the U.S. Defiant and its fleet arrived, surrounding his ship with quantum disruptors aimed at its engines. Emperor Zolver, John Freeman's voice came through. Your ship is disabled. Your fleet is destroyed. Surrender now. Inside the lunar facility, Helen watched as the Emperor's ship powered down. Around Earth, remaining Vrax forces were retreating in panic. Their command structure collapsed. 1 month later, representatives from a dozen formerly subjugated worlds gathered on Earth. The Nilari had indeed returned, drawn by the activation of their ancient outpost. They offered alliance with the young races the Vrax had tormented. Admiral Helen Grant, Captain John Freeman, Patricia Daniels, Dr. Lisa Young, and Major Eric Phillips stood together as Earth joined the new Stellar Liberation Alliance. Their world, once seen as weak and easily conquered, now led a coalition of free planets. They chose Earth because they thought we were weak, Patricia told the assembled delegates. What they never understood was that humans don't break under pressure. We transform, and now we'll ensure no species ever suffers as we did. As the first Earth ships prepared to depart, carrying aid to other worlds devastated by the Vrax, humanity stepped into its new role, not as conquerors, but as protectors. The weak had not only survived, they had become the guardians of the stars. Alarms blared throughout the lunar facility. Emperor Zolvar's massive ship had broken through the outer defense grid and was approaching rapidly. Evacuation protocols initiated, a computerized voice announced. Admiral Helen Grant shook her head. No evacuation. This is where we make our stand. Lisa Young worked frantically at her console. The planetary grid is holding, but I need 10 more minutes to lock it permanently. Patricia Daniels studied the approaching Vrax vessel. That ship is different. Its design incorporates technology beyond what we've seen. Can our quantum disruptors affect it? Helen asked. I don't know, Lisa admitted. It seems to have multiple redundant systems. On the command deck of his ship, Emperor Zolver prepared for the assault. His vessel, the subjugator, represented the pinnacle of Vrax military power. a ship he had kept hidden, saving it for truly worthy opponents. "Prepare boarding parties," he ordered. "I want the humans who created this weapon captured alive." In Earth orbit, the U.S. Defiant raced back from Jupiter, pushing its engines beyond safe limits. "Time to lunar intercept?" John Freeman asked urgently. 22 minutes, Captain," Amy Lopes answered. "The Emperor's ship will reach the facility in 5. John clenched his fist. Not enough time. Open a channel to Admiral Grant. On Earth, Major Eric Phillips and his team had secured the Washington Control Center. From there, they could see Vrak's forces in disarray across the planet. The day of reckoning arrived with the silence of dawn. Admiral Helen Grant stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing resistance forces across Earth and throughout the solar system. "All teams report ready," Colonel Pearson announced. Helen nodded. "Send the signal." A simple message flashed to every resistance cell and hidden ship. Thunderbolt begins. In the asteroid belt, Captain John Freeman sat in the command chair of the U.S. Defiant. 5 other Earth ships and 12 converted mining vessels formed up around his position. "All ships report quantum disruptors online and functioning," Amy Lopes said. "Set course for Jupiter," John ordered. "Maximum speed." The small fleet accelerated toward the massive gas giant, where the Vrak's command ship Dominance orbited. Their target was not the Emperor's vessel itself, not yet. First, they needed to disable the orbital command station that coordinated all Vrak ships in the solar system. On Earth, Major Eric Phillips led 300 fighters through the streets of what had once been Washington, D.C., their objective, the main Vrak's ground control center. "Remember," he told them, "we need to hold the position for 30 minutes. Just 30 minutes to allow Dr. Young to activate the planetary grid." The fighters moved like shadows through the ruins of the once proud capital. Each carried weapons modified with Nilari technology. They would need every advantage. In the lunar facility, Dr. Lisa Young made final adjustments to the planetary defense grid. For months, resistance cells had secretly placed quantum nodes at strategic points around Earth. Today, they would all activate at once. "Power levels stable," Lisa reported. "Commencing startup sequence." Patricia Daniels monitored Vrak's communications. They've detected the fleet moving toward Jupiter. They're scrambling response ships. In space, the Defiant led the human fleet toward the massive Vrak station. It resembled a metallic spider, legs extending to dock dozens of ships. "They're launching fighters," Ben Powell warned. "Stay on course," John ordered. "All ships prepare to engage quantum disruptors on my mark." The Vrak's fighters approached, energy weapons charging. They outnumbered the human ships 5-1. "Now," John commanded. The human fleet fired as one. Not conventional weapons, but focused beams of quantum energy. Where they struck, reality itself seemed to warp. Vrak's shields flickered and failed. Engines destabilized. Some ships simply imploded as their power cores collapsed. In the Dominance, Emperor Zulver watched in shock as his fighters disintegrated. "What weapon is this?" he demanded. "How are they doing this?" "Unknown, Emperor," Sub-Commander Vex Lore replied, his voice shaking. "It appears to be targeting our drive systems specifically. Launch all remaining ships. Crush them." On Earth, the battle for the control center had begun. Eric's forces faced heavy Vrak's resistance, but their modified weapons gave them an unexpected edge. The aliens fell back in confusion as their personal shields failed against the new human technology. "They're retreating to the central building," Kate Harris reported. Eric nodded grimly. "Push forward. We need to hold that building." In the lunar facility, Lisa activated the final sequence. Planetary grid coming online. Across Earth, hundreds of hidden quantum nodes activated simultaneously. They created an interlocking web of disruption fields, specifically tuned to Vrak's technology. Vrak's ships in low orbit suddenly lost power. Some crashed. Others drifted helplessly. On the ground, Vrak's weapons and vehicles failed. Their communication network collapsed. At the Jupiter command station, the human fleet broke through the disorganized Vrax defense. The Defiant approached the central hub, quantum disruptors at full power. "Target locked," Amy announced. "Fire," John ordered. The beam struck the command center. For a moment, the station seemed unchanged. Then cracks appeared along its surface, glowing with blue energy. The structure began to fold in on itself like paper crumpling. In the Dominance, alarms blared as communication with the station ceased. "Launch my personal vessel," Zulver commanded. "Prepare a strike force. I will deal with this myself." The Emperor's ship, larger and more powerful than any other Vrax vessel, detached from the Dominance. Its course: the Moon, where sensors had detected the source of the quantum disruption. The human counterattack had begun brilliantly, but the war was far from over. The hidden lunar facility hummed with activity. 1 month had passed since Admiral Grant brought together the key players of Project Thunderbolt. Dr. Lisa Young had barely slept in that time, working to merge Nilari technology with human ingenuity. "The quantum disruption field is stable," she told her team, watching the small device on the testing platform. "Now we need to scale it up." The device, no bigger than a coffee cup, emitted a gentle blue glow. Its power source came from the abandoned Nilari outpost. Its targeting system was human-designed. When activated, it created the same quantum instabilities that Vrax ships produced, but with one critical difference: it could direct and amplify them. In another section of the facility, Patricia Daniels worked with communication specialists. Her time as a Vrax prisoner had given her insight into their command structure. "They rely heavily on central control," she explained, pointing to a diagram. "Cut off a ship from the command network, and their response time drops significantly." Admiral Grant entered, followed by Captain Freeman. They had arrived from the asteroid belt the previous day, bringing crates of salvage Nilari technology. "How soon?" Helen asked, looking at the prototype device. 2 weeks for the ship-mounted versions," Lisa answered. 1 month for the planetary defense grid. John frowned. "The Vrax are accelerating their harvest. We've intercepted more transport ships in the past week than in the previous month." "Then we move faster," Helen decided. "Captain, coordinate with Major Phillips on Earth. We need precision strikes to gather the remaining components." On Earth, Eric Phillips led his team through the ruins of Chicago. Once a bustling city, now it was a Vrax mining center. Massive drills extracted minerals from deep below the former downtown. "The control hub is 2 blocks ahead," Kate Harris whispered. "Heavy security." Eric nodded. "Lily, your turn." Lily Chen activated the small device they'd built based on her stolen data. It emitted a frequency that interfered with Vrax sensors. "We have 10 minutes before they detect the anomaly," she warned. The team moved quickly through the shadows. 2 guards stood at the entrance to the control hub, a converted office building surrounded by energy barriers. Sam Mitchell raised a modified rifle. "Ready." 2 silent shots. The guards dropped, stunned by the reverse-engineered Vrax weapons. The team rushed forward, placing small explosives on the door. Inside, they found what they needed: specialized communication crystals used in the Vrax network. Lisa Young had been clear: without these crystals, Project Thunderbolt couldn't target the Vrax command systems. "We've got them," Eric reported through a secure channel. Heading to extraction point. Across Earth, similar raids happened simultaneously. In Australia, resistance fighters sabotaged the massive energy collector. In Brazil, another team stole shield modulation equipment. In Russia, fighters blocked a Vrax supply line. None of these actions was large enough to draw major Vrax attention. That was the plan: small cuts precisely placed, preparing for the killing blow. In orbit around Jupiter, the Vrax command ship Dominance monitored the increased human activity with growing concern. "These attacks are becoming more coordinated," Sub-Commander Vex Lore reported to Emperor Zulver. "Perhaps we should delay the final harvest." Zulver snarled. "Humans are desperate, not dangerous. Accelerate the timeline." I want Earth stripped within 6 months. And the human resistance. Send hunter-killer squadrons to each incident site. No survivors. Back at the lunar facility, Lisa Young connected the final component to the first full-sized quantum disruptor. The device was now as large as a car, its core pulsing with energy. "Ready for testing," she announced. Admiral Grant nodded to the technicians behind the safety shield. "Proceed." The device hummed to life. A beam of energy shot toward a captured Vrax shuttle they'd positioned as a target. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality seemed to ripple around the shuttle. Metal twisted. Energy fields collapsed. The shuttle's power core destabilized, and the vessel imploded with a flash of blue light. Silence filled the testing chamber. Then cheers erupted from the gathered personnel. Helen looked at John, Patricia, and Lisa. "It works. Start mass production immediately." For the first time in 3 years, humanity had a weapon capable of defeating their oppressors. Project Thunderbolt was no longer just a plan. It was becoming a reality. And the Vrax had no idea what was coming. Dr. Lisa Young bent over the captured Vrax weapon, her eyes strained from hours of careful work. The underground lab hummed with activity as other scientists examined different pieces of alien technology. "Hand me the microscanner," she said to her assistant. Lisa had been studying Vrax technology for 3 years. Piece by piece, she had taken apart everything the Resistance could steal. Today felt different. The weapon from the Boston raid had an unusual power core. "That's strange," she muttered, examining the readings. "The energy signature pulses at regular intervals, even when powered down." She adjusted her scanner and gasped. "It's creating tiny tears in space-time. That's how their faster-than-light drives work." Across the room, the door opened. Admiral Helen Grant entered with a thin woman Lisa didn't recognize. "Dr. Young," Helen said, "this is Patricia Daniels. She was our chief diplomat with the Vrax before the invasion." Patricia looked worn, her face marked with small scars, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "Dr. Young, I've heard you're doing impressive work." Lisa nodded. "I just found something. Their FTL drives create quantum instabilities." "That matches what I learned during my captivity," Patricia said. "The Vrax aren't as powerful as they want us to believe." Helen motioned them to a secure meeting room. Once inside, Patricia began to share what she had learned during 3 years as a prisoner. "The Vrax aren't a major galactic power," she explained. "They're scavengers. They find worlds with potential but limited development and trick them into submission." She pulled up her sleeve, showing a strange metallic implant. "They kept me as a study subject, but their security systems had flaws. I could access some of their databases through this." Lisa examined the implant with wonder. "You hacked their system?" Patricia smiled thinly. "I was a computer programmer before I became a diplomat. The Vrax are overconfident. They think other species are too simple to understand their technology." Helen leaned forward. "What exactly did you learn?" "The Vrax have conquered 14 worlds this way. They're at war with several other alien powers. They specifically target planets with resources they need, but avoid worlds with advanced technology." In space, Captain John Freeman's fleet had made its biggest discovery yet. The U.S. Defiant hovered near an asteroid that wasn't actually an asteroid. "Scans confirm it's artificial," Amy Lopes reported. "Some kind of abandoned outpost." John studied the readings. "Non-Vrax design. Older, maybe. Can we get inside?" A team of engineers cut through the outer hull. Inside, they found large chambers filled with strange technology. The designs were elegant, almost artistic. Nothing like the brutal efficiency of Vrax equipment. "Captain," called Ben Powell from a central chamber. "You need to see this." John entered the room and froze. A holographic display filled the center, showing hundreds of star systems. Some were marked with symbols none of them recognized. "It's a map," John realized, "of the entire sector. Maybe beyond." Ben nodded, pointing to unfamiliar text scrolling beside the display. And according to the active systems, this outpost belongs to something called the Nilari. Back on Earth, Eric Phillips led a team through the forests of what had once been Canada. They moved carefully, avoiding Vrax patrols. "The pickup point should be just ahead," Eric whispered. They entered a small clearing where a battered shuttle waited. 2 resistance fighters stood guard. "You Phillips?" one asked. Eric nodded. "Got someone who needs to meet you. Said she has information about Vrax weaknesses." From the shuttle emerged a young woman with dark hair. "My name is Lily Chen. I worked at the Vrax research facility in Vancouver." Her eyes were fierce as she held up a small data drive. "I stole this before escaping. It contains the frequencies their shields can't block." Later that day, Admiral Grant received 3 messages. One from Lisa Young about the quantum instabilities, one from Captain Freeman about the Nilari outpost, and one from Eric Phillips about the shield frequencies. She called an emergency meeting of all resistance leaders. For the first time, she told them, "We have a real chance. The Vrax have weaknesses we can exploit. It's time to move from surviving to fighting back." In the command center, a plan began to take shape. They called it Project Thunderbolt. 3 years passed since the day the skies darkened with Vrax ships. Earth had changed. Most major cities now featured tall, blue-black towers where Vrax administrators lived and worked. Humans moved through the streets with heads down, many wearing the metal collars that marked them as labor workers. Major Eric Phillips watched from the shadow of an abandoned building as a Vrax patrol marched past. Once he had commanded an army battalion. Now he led a different kind of force. "They're moving another mining unit into the old subway tunnels," whispered Kate Harris, his scout. Her face was thin, marked with a scar from a Vrax energy weapon. 10 guards, 20 human workers. Eric nodded. "Tell Sam to prepare the diversion. We move in 30 minutes." Kate slipped away, silent as a ghost. Eric checked his weapon. A modified Vrax stunner they'd captured months ago. His group had gotten good at stealing Vrax technology, though never enough to make a real difference. Underground, in a forgotten maintenance tunnel beneath Boston, 50 men and women prepared for the raid. They weren't soldiers, teachers, doctors, factory workers, but 3 years under Vrax rule had hardened them. "Remember," Eric told them, "we get the workers out first, then grab whatever tech we can carry. No heroes today." They moved through the tunnels with practiced silence. Above them, an explosion rocked the street, Sam's diversion. The resistance fighters surged forward as Vrax guards ran toward the commotion. In space, things were no better. Captain John Freeman looked out the viewport of the U.S. Defiant at the small fleet they'd gathered. 6 Earth ships and 3 converted mining vessels, hiding in the dense clouds of Saturn. "Captain," his first officer, Amy Lopes, said, "we've received a transmission from Earth. Coded resistance channel." John moved to the communications station. The message was brief. "New Vrax mining operation. Boston. Possible weakness in security grid. Send a response," John ordered. "Tell them we'll hit the orbital station during their raid. Create maximum confusion." The Defiant had been conducting hit-and-run attacks for 3 years, never staying in one place long enough for the Vrax to track them. They'd saved thousands of humans from transport ships and gathered valuable intelligence. But they were losing. Everyone knew it. In the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Helen Grant studied reports in the underground command center. The facility had expanded, housing nearly 1,000 personnel and refugees. "The Vrax are building something in Australia," said Colonel Frank Pearson, pointing to satellite images. "Our scouts say it's some kind of massive energy collector." Helen nodded. "And these resource ships, they're coming more frequently now." "They're stripping the planet faster," Frank agreed. "Earth has maybe 5 more years before they've taken everything valuable." A young lieutenant entered with a tablet. "Admiral, Dr. Young needs to see you immediately." Helen hurried to the research lab where Dr. Lisa Young waited. Once a NASA engineer, Lisa now led their scientific efforts to understand Vrax technology. "We did it," Lisa said, her eyes bright with excitement for the first time in years. "We cracked their communication encryption." Helen stared at the screens showing Vrax's transmissions. "Can you translate it?" "Already have." Lisa pointed to English text scrolling beside the alien symbols. "This is from their central command to all ships in the sector." Helen read quickly, her expression darkening. "They're calling for more transport ships. They're accelerating the timeline for—" She paused. "What's resource extraction completion?" Lisa looked grim. "Based on context, they're planning to remove all valuable resources and abandon the planet within 2 years, including biological resources. They're going to take as many humans as they can and leave the rest to die on a stripped world." Helen realized. The door opened again. A communications officer rushed in. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple signals from resistance cells. The Boston group hit a Vrax mining operation. They found something." He handed her a datapad. Helen's eyes widened as she read. "Get me Captain Freeman immediately," she ordered. "And find out if we have anyone who knows a Dr. Patricia Daniels. She just escaped Vrax captivity with information that might change everything." For the first time in 3 years, Helen felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. The morning dawned clear and beautiful over Geneva. Patricia Daniels sipped her coffee as she reviewed her notes for today's meeting with Ambassador Kraltov. 18 months of diplomatic relations had brought many changes to Earth. Vrax medical technology had cured diseases thought incurable. Their limited power systems had reduced energy costs in major cities. Yet doubts remained. Dr. Kevin Russell had vanished after sending fragmented warnings about the Vrax. Commander Winters had been reassigned after raising too many questions, and the Vrax still restricted access to their ships and advanced technology. Patricia's phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. "Ambassador canceled meeting. Their ships are leaving orbit." She frowned, looking out her window toward the embassy. Strange lights flickered around the building. That was odd. The Vrax usually informed her of all their activities. Her phone buzzed again. Then continuously as emergency alerts flooded in. The sky erupted with light. Patricia watched in horror as massive ships, far larger than any the Vrax had shown before, appeared in the atmosphere. They had been cloaked somehow, hiding their true size and numbers. Beams of energy sliced through Earth's orbital defense platforms. They were cut apart like paper, unable to even fire back. Secondary explosions followed as orbital habitats and research stations were systematically destroyed. Patricia grabbed her emergency bag and ran. Outside, people flooded the streets in panic. Above them, more Vrax ships appeared, deploying smaller craft that began landing in city centers worldwide. "This is Captain John Freeman of the U.S. Defiant." A voice broke through on all communication channels. "Earth is under attack. All military vessels respond. Civilians seek shelter immediately." The U.S. Defiant was one of Earth's newest warships, stationed near Mars when the attack began. John Freeman stood on the bridge, watching in horror as the Vrax fleet emerged from hiding throughout the solar system. A second Vrax force had simultaneously struck the Mars colony and Jupiter mining stations. "Shields at maximum," John ordered. "Ready weapons and prepare for evasive maneuvers." His tactical officer, Amy Lopes, looked up from her console. "Sir, 4 Vrax destroyers on approach. They're targeting our engines. All power to thrusters. Get us behind Phobos for cover." The Defiant shuddered as it accelerated away from Mars. Behind them, the colony's defenses were already falling. "Sir," Communications Officer Ben Powell called out, "I'm picking up a broadcast. It's being sent to all Earth frequencies." John nodded. On screen, the view screen showed a Vrax male, taller and more muscular than Ambassador Kraltov. His skin was a deeper blue, marked with scars that seemed intentional, decorative. "People of Earth," he began, his voice deeper than the diplomats they had met. "I am Emperor Zulver of the Vrax Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. Your resources are now ours. Your people will serve as we direct." He smiled, showing teeth that seemed sharper than those of the diplomats. You were classified as a resource species upon our first assessment. Technologically capable but psychologically weak. Willing to trust. Easy to deceive. Perfect for exploitation. In Geneva, Patricia ran through streets filled with screaming people as Vrak's landing craft touched down. Soldiers emerged, nothing like the friendly diplomats. These Vraks were heavily armored, carrying weapons that fired pulses of energy that cut through buildings and people alike. She ducked into an alley as a group of them rounded up humans, placing metal collars around their necks before herding them toward the ships. In Colorado's Rocky Mountains, Admiral Helen Grant arrived at the Emergency Command Center, built in secret after Commander Winters had raised his concerns. The facility was buried deep, shielded from Vrak sensors. "Status report," she demanded, looking at the grim faces of her staff. "Orbital defenses destroyed. 80% of surface military bases hit in first strike. Mars colony has gone silent. We've lost contact with Jupiter stations." Helen's jaw tightened, and the Defiant. "Still fighting. Captain Freeman is trying to gather survivors from the outer colonies." She nodded, looking at the tactical display showing Earth surrounded by Vrak ships. "Then we're not done yet," she said quietly. "Not by a long shot." 6 months after first contact, the Vrak's embassy in Geneva stood as a monument to interspecies cooperation. The sleek building with its curved blue walls and strange lights seemed to glow from within, drawing curious onlookers day and night. Inside, Chief Diplomat Patricia Daniels smiled as she walked beside Ambassador Kreltoth through the main hall. At 53, Patricia had spent her career building bridges between nations. Now she built them between worlds. "The medical equipment your people provided has already saved thousands of lives," Patricia said. "The hospitals can't thank you enough." Kreltoth's face shifted, and what she had learned was a Vrak smile. "We are pleased to share our knowledge with our new friends. Next week, we will deliver the power generation technology we promised." Patricia nodded, making notes on her tablet. The Vraks had been generous with their gifts, though some noted they seemed careful about what technologies they shared. Nothing weapons-related, nothing with faster-than-light capabilities. Just medicine, some agricultural improvements, and limited power generation. Sensible, most agreed. No need to give everything away at once. But not everyone felt comfortable with Earth's new allies. Dr. Kevin Russell wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the samples under his microscope. The Lunar Base 1 laboratory was supposed to be climate-controlled, but something was wrong with the system today. Like many things lately. "Computer, enhance section 4, he said, his eyes never leaving the display. The screen zoomed in on the Vrak cell structure he'd been studying for weeks. Something wasn't right. The official biological data the Vraks had provided showed their physiology as open and simple, but his secret samples, taken from a tissue left behind at a meeting, told a different story. "Computer, compare official Vrak's biological file with current sample." The screen split, showing both images. The differences were subtle but unmistakable. The official data showed a species that evolved on a world much like Earth. His sample showed adaptation to much harsher conditions, with dense muscle fibers and reinforced cellular walls. The Vraks were lying about who they were. Kevin reached for his communication panel. "I need to speak with Commander Winters. Priority 1. The system beeped but showed only static. Kevin frowned. Communications had been spotty for days. He tried again with the same result. "Probably the solar flares," his assistant Sam said, entering the lab. "They've been disrupting everything this week." Kevin nodded slowly, but something felt wrong. The timing was too convenient. The flares had started right after he'd begun his unauthorized research. "I'm going to the relay station myself," he decided, saving his data to a secure drive. Across the solar system, strange incidents multiplied. A mining station near Jupiter lost contact for 3 days. When connection was restored, the crew reported nothing unusual, though they seemed oddly reserved. The Mars colony suffered a series of unexplained power outages. Equipment vanished from storage. Earth Defense Force ships reported sensor ghosts, objects appearing and disappearing at the edge of detection range. On Earth, Commander Alex Winters reviewed these reports with growing concern. The conference room at Space Defense Headquarters felt too small as he paced. "Something's not adding up," he told Susan Miller, now promoted to captain. "These incidents started right after the Vraks arrived." Susan nodded. "I've noticed something else. Every Vraks gift comes with their technicians to install it. They never share the underlying science, just the finished product. Like they don't want us understanding how it works." Alex agreed. The door opened, and Admiral Carter entered, his face grim. "We've lost contact with Lunar Base 1. Last transmission was a partial message from Dr. Russell. Something about the Vraks biology." Alex felt a chill. "When was this?" 3 hours ago. "We've sent a ship to check, but they won't arrive for another 6 hours." Outside the Geneva embassy, Patricia Daniels watched as another Vraks ship landed, larger than any before. Ambassador Kraltoth had called it a cultural exchange vessel. As she watched the blue-skinned visitors unload strange equipment, Patricia didn't notice the small devices they placed at key points around the landing area. Nor did she see the scanner that briefly passed over her, recording every detail of her physical makeup and the building behind her. The deception was well underway, and Earth still had no idea what was coming. The gentle hum of the NASA Deep Space Monitoring Station was the only sound breaking the silence as Jane Wright adjusted her headset. The night shift was always quiet, but she didn't mind. After 15 years of listening to the empty whispers of space, Jane had grown comfortable with the solitude. Until tonight, her screen flickered with an unusual pattern. Jane leaned forward, her coffee forgotten as she examined the readings. The signal was coming from beyond Pluto, structured in a way that couldn't be natural. "Control, this is Deep Space Monitoring Station 7, Jane said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm picking up an anomalous signal. Pattern suggests intelligent origin." Within hours, the quiet station transformed into a hub of frantic activity. Commander Alex Winters arrived with a team of specialists, his face serious as he reviewed the data. "It's definitely artificial," he confirmed, looking at Lieutenant Susan Miller, his second in command. "And it's getting stronger." Susan nodded, her expression thoughtful. "They're coming closer." The world leaders were notified. Emergency meetings called, and within 48 hours, humanity faced the reality they had speculated about for centuries. They were not alone. Commander Winters stood before the hastily assembled United Earth Council, his uniform crisp despite having barely slept. "The signal appears to be a form of greeting," he explained. "Our linguistics team believes it's an attempt at communication rather than a threat." Admiral Paul Carter, head of Earth's Space Defense Force, frowned. "We can't be certain of that." "No, sir, we can't," Alex agreed. "But we need to respond somehow." The council debated for hours before reaching a decision. Earth would answer the signal and prepare for contact. Simultaneously, all military forces would move to high alert. The U.S. Horizon, Earth's newest and most advanced exploratory vessel, was ordered to the edge of the solar system. As captain, Alex found himself standing on the bridge, staring at the vast emptiness of space that suddenly felt much less empty. "Final checks complete, Commander," Susan reported. "All systems nominal." Alex nodded. "Take us out, Lieutenant." Nice and easy. The journey to the outer reaches of the solar system took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of preparation, speculation, and increasing tension. Earth had established colonies on Mars and mining operations throughout the asteroid belt, and on several moons of Jupiter and Saturn, but they had never ventured this far out with a crewed mission. "Contact in 5 minutes," Susan announced, her voice echoing through the ship. The crew of the Horizon fell silent as they approached the coordinates. Then they saw it, a sleek vessel, clearly artificial, waiting just beyond Pluto's orbit. It was smaller than the horizon, but emanated an aura of advanced technology that made Earth's best ship seem primitive by comparison. "Open a channel," Alex ordered. Before they could, their communication system activated on its own. "Greetings, Earth vessel," came a melodic voice, speaking perfect English. "We are the Vrax Collective. We have been observing your civilization for some time." Alex exchanged a quick glance with Susan before responding. "This is Commander Alex Winters of the United Earth Ship Horizon. How is it you speak our language? We have studied your broadcasts. Your species is fascinating to us. We wish to establish formal relations." The alien ship moved closer, revealing intricate patterns along its hull that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. A holographic image appeared on the horizon's main screen showing the humanoid figure with iridescent blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes. "I am Ambassador Kraltov. We request permission to send a diplomatic party to your homeworld." Alex felt the weight of history on his shoulders. This decision would change humanity forever. "We welcome peaceful contact," he said carefully, "but we'll need to establish protocols." The alien seemed to smile. "Of course. We anticipate a long and prosperous relationship between our peoples." As the horizon transmitted the news back to Earth, none of the crew noticed the faint scanning beams mapping every aspect of their ship, or the smaller vessels detaching from the alien craft to begin a silent journey toward the inner planets. First contact had been made, and Earth would never be the same again.